Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, sponsored by Chalkboard, where you can simply choose more or less than your favorite player stats and win up to 5,000 times your money. I am Jim Coventry. Today, I'm giving you my top reactions to the Sunday Week 13 action. Before we get into reaction number one, though, we won't cover this game, but Bijan Robinson, 192 scrimmage yards and a touchdown, getting it done, but not for the Falcons, because the Falcons end up losing that game to the Tyrod Taylor-led New York Jets. That game was 27-24, but again, Bijan Robinson with a signature performance. Always excited to watch Bijan Robinson taking care of business. And we're getting in a little later. I see a comment on the Seahawks. We'll be talking about them a little bit later. All right, we go to instant reaction number one. The Carolina Panthers upset the Los Angeles Rams. Panthers 31, Rams 28. The Rams fall to 9-3. They're tied with Seattle atop the NFC West. They fall to the number 2 seed behind the Chicago Bears. I don't believe that one, but it's reality. The Panthers moved to 7-5, tied with the Bucs for the AFC South lead. And I'll tell you, before we get into the nuts and bolts of this game, there are a lot of good playoff races we're going to have this year. This is going to be so much fun these last few weeks. We're here for fantasy football, but man, we want to see some good football. We want to see meaningful games in week 17, and it's all ramping up like that's what we're going to get. But back to the Panthers-Rams game. So we'll talk about the Panthers first. First of all, their defense. A pick six by Mike Jackson on Matthew Stafford. They got a second interception. They forced a fumble from Matthew Stafford. The defense really won this game. And this is a defense. J.C. Horn out with a concussion. Trevon Merrick suspended. They were without Christian Roseboom, a linebacker. They were down starters, and they ended up giving trouble to the Rams. Now, on a side note, doesn't matter who the winner or loser was in terms of this. The weather got nasty in the second half. Got really rainy. It was not a good environment for football, but it was a good environment for the Panthers because the Panthers figured something out. That rushing attack's been good all year. And whether it's been Rico Dowdle, whether it's been Chuba Hubbard, not as much, but that offensive line, even when they're missing people, they get their tight ends blocking. They are a great run blocking unit. That has not changed all year. And they steamrolled the Rams on the ground. The yardage numbers weren't great, but the time of possession, they ran to move the chains. The explosive runs again. Dowd led a 17-yard run on 18 carries. Hubbard at 17 carries and 110-yard carries, but it was a grinding, effective clock killing. 13 minutes of the third quarter, Carolina possessed the football. Now there were Rams turnovers in there too. Didn't matter. They drained that clock and that whole quarter out, and we still had 59 points scored in the game. So here's the first thing for fantasy. The timeshare. Rico Dowdle had those 2 weeks where he had 230 yards, weeks 5 and 6, I believe. He had those great games. And then Chuba Hubbard recently said he came back, but he wasn't fully healthy. Well, last week we saw a little bit closer to the work, and this week, Dowdle gets 18 carries. Hubbard gets 17 carries. I'll check the snap share tomorrow. The snaps could have told. Sometimes the snaps tell a little different of a story, but workload was pretty even. And Hubbard was a more effective runner. Hubbard was 17 for 83. That's almost 5 yards a pop. Rico Dowdle was 18 for 58. That's about 3 yards a pop, a little more than that. So Hubbard is a better runner here, a little more sustaining. And as a receiver, Hubbard catches the 35-yard touchdown. So he goes 2 for 41 and a touchdown. Dowdle catches 2 for 21. So I'll say it this way. Right now, remember, we've talked about this before. Hubbard's in the second year of a 4-year deal. Rico Dowdle's gone at the end of the season if anybody pays him anything. Dowdle's on a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. I don't see the Panthers coming in and paying a ton of money. So right now, if Hubbard's playing well and him and Dowdle are playing equal, they'll split the snaps. And I think this is a timeshare going forward. That obviously lowers Dowdle, who we've been tentatively keeping in that running back 1 range because of volume. Now we got to move him down to running back 18, and we got to move Hubbard up to about running back 20. They're going to be right in that same bucket every week. So that's the big deal there. Big takeaway from the game. Bryce Young, 3 touchdowns. Hooray. Nice job. Definitely give him credit for that. Throw for 206. So again, hey, he was over 200 yards, 3rd time this year, barely over, but he's over. But he won the game. Only had to throw the ball 20 times because they were running the ball 40. So, but it's a win. And give credit to Bryce Young. He did what he had to do. He had one nice 24-yard run, saw some open, space, and he took it. It was just very wise use of his space. Nice play there. In terms of the receiving, Ted McMillan, 2 targets out of the 20 passes. Now, the Rams did a nice job of paying attention, except for the touchdown. The Rams lost. He was on a crosser. He was on a crossing route. The Rams safety got discombobulated, and then McMillan got behind the corner. 43-yard touchdown. It was his only catch of the game. But if you start him in fantasy, like I told you to start sit, McMillan's going to get you your 10 PPR points. He got you about 12 with that. So there's that. That's what he gets you every week. He has one game over 20. It might be one game over 18, actually. But that's what he gets you. He gets you about 10 every week. And you know what? It's fine. Oh, just news. Adam Schefter reports Justin Herbert fractured his left hand in the game. He finished it, but more news on that. It's breaking news. I want to share that with you. So, yeah. So, Ted McMillan, floor play every week. Great. Jalen Coker popped up here, but I don't know if we can count on it. No other player had more than 3. Mitchell Evans had 3 targets. He was second on the team with targets. Jalen Coker was first with 6. Caught 4 for 74 and a touchdown. As, again, watching all these games going on, taking notes and all this stuff. So, I will tell you when I rewatch it, the focus of the defense is on McMillan. They weren't putting any special focal point on Coker. Why would you? But Coker's a good player. But again, when your quarterback's throwing for less than 200 yards a game, it's hard enough to start McMillan. It's hard enough to start a second guy. Xavier Lee get 1 catch, 1 yard. So again, you start McMillan, the running backs, now both of them, you start them. And again, Bryce Young, flip a coin and hope it has 3 sides. And you get the one side that comes up because most weeks he's not playable. He was playable here, but I wouldn't have recommended. I doubt too many people would have said this is his game, but it was. Good job for the Panthers, 7-5. The Rams side of the ball. I mentioned earlier, Stafford throws an early pick 6, throws another interception, loses a fumble, put his team in a real hole. Davante Adams is magic. Only hits 5 targets, catches 4. 2 of them are touchdowns, 58 yards. And look, we talked about this in the preseason. I was worried about Stafford's back. And that was the full disclosure on that. If it wasn't for his back, I was saying before the back injury, and then once I realized he was well, I go, beginning of the season is going to be rough with Davante Adams because it's going to be a lot of man. He'd be on single man coverage. When he's there, Stafford's going to throw him the ball. But the chemistry, knowing exactly where the breaks are coming, that was going to take time. And that's exactly what happened. It took a few weeks because you would see in those first couple games, Stafford to throw it to Adams just a little off, hair high, a hair behind him. It's not happening anymore. Now he knows exactly where he's going to be. Adams is a phenomenal receiver. And again, 2 more touchdowns. Top of my head, 14 in the season. I think that sounds right. Insane. Davante Adams, he and Puka, wide receiver ones, but Puka, not quite the wide receiver he was earlier in the season. Still a wide receiver 1. Remember all those 100-yard games he had in the first 4 weeks? He hasn't hit 100 yards since. Now he has a 97 and a 95 in there, but this was 6 or 72. Now he's lost some snaps when they play their 3 tight end sets. He's not always on the field, so he loses some snaps there. The targets haven't been crazy. Like there were 9 targets in this game. Fine amount of targets, fine with that. But again, very difficult. Puko's getting that massive target share, and it's scaled down a little bit. A lot of people in the start sit stream like Colby Parkinson. I didn't see a real reason why somebody would have started him. I said they might not need him. I didn't see them chasing 31-28, so he got 4 for 27. If you start him, I guess 6 points for some people might do it. I just don't see him as anything worth saying, oh, he's a player they're definitely going to have to use. So, Justin Herbert, another update, Ian Rappaport will have surgery on his left wrist tomorrow. Again, we have no idea how that impacts his status for next week. We saw Aaron Rodgers try to play with a broken wrist today. Didn't go well, but he's Aaron Rodgers. He wasn't doing well with a fine wrist. So there's that. We'll find out more on that. But so the backfield for the Rams, Kyren Williams briefly left with an ankle injury, came back, so no issue there. 13 for 72 and a touchdown. This was a really bad Panthers run defense. I know some people put up numbers from different sites and say they're not a good run defense. You can run the ball on them, and the Rams have a nice rushing attack, and you can't ever sell out to stop the run. You got Puka Nacua and you've got Davante Adams. You can never sell out. So Kyren goes for 6 yards to carry, scores a touchdown. 1 target, didn't catch it. And Blake Corum, very nice changeup. He had a 34-yard run there, goes 7 for 81 in the touchdown. Now, he had been getting 12 carries a game in recent games. So Corum, now only 7 is, remember, they only had 49 plays. Because remember, I told you the Panthers ate up like 13 minutes of the third quarter. And some of those turnovers truncated drives too. But Corum had been getting double-digit touches. He is in that bucket right now based on his last month of performance that you're considering him for flex because he can get you flex production. And we see they will use him in the red zone. It's not automatically Kyron Williams. Both running backs scored in this one, but they both get used in the red zone. So it's really a coin flip as to who scores the touchdown. It used to be automatic Kyron Williams time. Now it's an either one play there. But don't need to say anything more about Nakua and Adams. Matthew Stafford obviously made some mistakes today. Been a great season for him. But the fantasy numbers aren't always going to be great. He doesn't run for anything. If he doesn't have the big yardage game, there are games they run well. He throws 3 touchdowns, but he might throw for 230. It's to the point where I got to lower him a little bit in the rankings because it looks like the passing attack's great, but it's not popping like it was a few weeks ago. So he's more like a quarterback 8 or 9. He's not like the quarterback 4 or 5. And like I said, the passing yardage doesn't always have to be there for him. So that said, Panthers 31, Rams 28. And now we go cash in on your NFL picks this season with Chalkboard. You simply choose more or less in your favorite player stats and win up to 5,000 times your money. For a limited time only, new players receive a free pick and a 100% deposit match. See why over 1 million fans have already locked in with Chalkboard to turn their sports knowledge into cold, hard cash. Whether you're locking in the perfect slip with alternate lines, using the cash out feature to take your money and run, or hammering the daily promos, today is your chance to win up to $40,000 in a single entry. Stop sitting on the sidelines and get into the game with Chalkboard Fantasy Sports, now available in 30 plus states. Download Chalkboard today and use the promo code ROTONFL. That's ROTONFL to claim your free pick and 100% deposit match now. Instant reaction number 2. The Texans hold off the Indianapolis Colts. Texans 20, Colts 16. And the AFC South just got a whole lot more interesting. The Colts and the Jags sit at 8-4 atop the division. The Texans 1 game back at 7-5. Great race going on in that division. Look, we've seen the flaws of the teams. The Colts, we've seen the flaws on offense in the last month or so. The Jaguars, you never know who you're getting week to week. And then the Texans, offensive lines are getting a little better. The team with the least flaws of this group right now might be the Texans. A lot of football to play, though. A lot of things to change. So, again, Texans 20-16. They go to 7-5. CJ Stroud. Efficient day. Like I said, the offensive line has been better. So he's not completely under siege. Only got sacked twice on 35 passes. That's a big upgrade from early in the season. Whoever the offensive line coach is, and I should know that, but I don't know off the top of my head, give the offensive line coach a lot of credit. He has done well with that unit. Very much improved. So Stroud, 276, throws a pick. The touchdowns, he doesn't get one. Nico Collins runs in a 7-yard touchdown. Nick Chubb ran in a touchdown. Those are the only 2 touchdowns in this one. But otherwise, he was getting the ball around to a number of receivers here. Now, big deal in this game. Very big deal. Going into this game, when I was projecting it, it was under the premise that Sauce Gardner and Charvarius Ward were playing corner very early in the game. Like probably first 5 minutes of clock time, Gardner goes out with a calf injury. He doesn't come back. He's in a boot. So they say it's a calf strain for now. We'll see how that works. But they lose him. That changes everything because all of a sudden the Colts were probably game planning man-heavy approach. And now when you're down Gardner, Charvarius Ward's really good. But you need more than that against Houston because they've got multiple good receivers. So I was recommending to play Jaden Higgins this week because of those 2 corners. Well, with one of them out, it was more favorable. Higgins goes 5 for 65. Very nice game. 5 targets. Now he's been getting 7+, a little lower, but fine enough and solid game for Higgins. I still have him in the wide receiver 4 bucket, but I think it might be moving him up pretty soon. If he puts together another good game, the efficiency on all those targets hasn't been great week to week, but we could really move him up very, very quickly. And then next we go to Nico Collins, 10 targets, 5 for 98, and he ran in that 7-yard touchdown. So again, that was one of the better fantasy days Collins has had this season. But again, the 10 targets, really nice. Overall, the matchup, like I said, when Gardner went down, it changed the math a little bit. But again, good job for him. Dalton Schultz keeps getting it done in your PPR. Now, last week, he hurt you. I think he only had a couple catches last week, but back to the 7 for 55. Most weeks, Schultz is your PPR, tight end 1. You use him, you set it and forget it. You get a floor. Woody Marks continues the same kind of deal he has. Now, he lost out on the touchdown to Nick Chubb. he left the game briefly with an injury and came back. Don't remember what the injury was off the top of my head, but he left briefly with an injury. And he may have been on the field when they scored a touchdown, but he wasn't. So he gets 19 carries for 64. So again, that's, a little more like 3.5 yards a pop, roughly. So not very efficient. But fine enough. And he caught one pass for 3 yards. So the same deal. I think it's 5 of the last 6 games. Woody Marks has 8 or fewer PPR points. So he gets a lot of volume, but he had the one game where it was big, but in really, like I think it was 5 of the last 6. It really has been a bit of a drag on his fantasy volume. So he's one of those players, he gets volume, but he's a flex. He's a flex just because he's not getting much going on there. So there's that. And so we move on to the Nick Chubb, 9 for 34 and a touchdown. Like I said, he subbed in a bit when Woody Marks missed some time. So there's that. So fine enough, but yeah, obviously you're not worried. That really is no difference there. But that's the way it worked. I like the way CJ Stroud worked the ball to his receivers. Got Hutchinson 5 targets, 2 for 39, but he focused it on his primary guys, Collins, Higgins, and Schultz. And that's the way he's got to do it. The way this offense runs, they don't need to involve their running backs right now. They don't have to do that. They want to stretch the defense, and then they want to set the run game through that. I think right now this offense is functioning at a decent level, but very, very solid performance there against a good Colts defense. Colts, on the other hand, so I hear that Daniel Jones playing with a fibula fracture. Okay, I get it. But full practice Friday, doctors cleared him to play. I get it. I feel bad. He's got a broken bone, but I'm seriously, it's probably a tiny fracture because he would not be cleared to play if this is anything that was going to be a problem for him. Doctors would not do it. It'd be negligence on their part. So I get it. He's hurt, but he's not injured. He's hurt. So Jones, about half of his passes were completed, 14 to 27, 201. He does get 2 touchdowns, so give him credit for that. Again, runs for 1 yard, but now again, he hadn't been running for a lot, but now he's got the leg thing. He's probably going to run less than usual. But the Houston defense was always going to be a problem for him. Daniel Jones, it's going to be this simple going forward. Now, again, the 2 touchdowns were nice, but I would not be counting on a whole lot from Daniel Jones when he's facing a good defense. The book's kind of out. And here's the other problem. Jonathan Taylor has not been going off in recent games. In front of me, it's probably 3 of the last 4 games. He's done fine, but he's not going off. It's like he's carrying the team on his back. 21 for 85. You'll take it. It's 4 yards to carry, but it's 4 yards to carry. You're hoping Jonathan Taylor is breaking a long run or two. His long run in 21 carries was 12 yards. Houston's, again, good defense. That's part of the problem. Taylor does catch 3 for 36. So for fantasy, he gets you done. And he's fine there. I was surprised. Josh Downs gets all of his snaps cut. He's playing like 40-something%. And it's problematic. And then all of a sudden, he leads the team with 6 targets, catches 2 for 44. I didn't see that coming. Now, I guess I would say this, because I didn't see it coming because there were other games the Colts had where they were tougher outside corner matchups. And I said, well, there's a Downs game. The slot's attackable. This is the same thing. But they showed they wouldn't do that. But in this game, they went, you can't attack the slot. And so they did use Downs a bit here. And it was smart. It was smart they did it. I was surprised because they didn't show the propensity to do that before. Tyler Warren is playing through a stomach bug. So he does get a touchdown, but 3 for 22. I don't know what he would have done if he was healthy because his numbers have not been great lately. But again, that said, no, Texas slot corner is not that good. Jalen Petrie, when he's healthy, and I'm not sure if he's on or off, he's okay, but not so much. It's the outside corners we worry about. You attack Houston in the slot. That's a blueprint, not mine. It's the coach's blueprint on him. It's just that simple. But but Tyler Warren, 3 for 22 and a touchdown. Nice game. Get it done for fantasy for you, and you're fine there. But otherwise, the big play, Alec Pierce. And again, this is one that didn't see this one coming because you got Lassiter and you got Stingley. And I'm like, well, Pierce plays outside. That's probably not a good matchup. 5 targets, goes 4 for 78. And it does a beautiful one. 2 defenders on him. Corner of the end zone. Comes out. Wow. It was a very, very nice catch. Alec Pierce is about to make some money. His contract's up. He is going to be in high demand now. The Colts might franchise him. We'll see how that goes. But he really has proven to be a very good NFL receiver. So very excited. Michael Pittman, now he's the one. He took the L here. 1 for 13 on 4 targets. So not so good. So rough game for him. But again, we told people to start to sit him. This was not a matchup that was probably going to work for him. All that said, Texans beat the Colts. Big game there. All right, Dabble isn't just another DFS app. It's the ultimate social platform where you can connect the other fantasy sports lovers. Dabble lets you win big. You can win up to 5,000 times your money this football season. Starting with Dabble is easy. New users get $25 free when signing up. No deposit necessary. Check out the link in the episode description below to download Dabble now. All right, we had instant reaction number 3. The Buccaneers take down the Cardinals. Buccaneers 20. Cardinals 17. Cardinals had their chances late, couldn't get it done. The big point for Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield coming in with a sprained, non-throwing shoulder. He's such a tough warrior competitor player. So tough. Comes out there 18-28, 194 and a touchdown. Runs for 27 yards, including a big 21-yard run. So much respect for Baker Mayfield in the game that he brings here. Numbers his passing weren't great, but he leads his team to a win, and that's really what matters here. Good news for the Buccaneers. Jalen McMillan, who's been out all year with a neck injury, neck or shoulder, he'll be potentially practicing soon. They could get him for the stretch run. We'll see. Don't know how the Mike Evans stats are, but hoping late December. We'll see on that. But that said, Chris Godwin showed up. Chris Godwin had 2 really nice catches for good yardage. He ends up with 3 for 78 on 5 targets. He dropped a potential touchdown. Baker Mayfield threw a really nice laser right about the waist of Chris Godwin. And Godwin, he looked at Baker. You could tell he felt so bad that he dropped that ball. But that would have been an easy touchdown. Godwin would have had a good fantasy day. Baker would have had a second touchdown. It would have made the game a lot easier for the Bucs as they had to settle for a field goal on that. Emeka Egbuka continues to have his struggles. 8 targets, which is good. 4 for 42. It's just been the book on him. You bracket him or you put cloud coverage over on him. And it's just, there are some receivers in their rookie year that could beat that. But Baker hasn't been throwing at the level he did last year. And Egbuka has a bit of a learning curve here. He was perfectly cast as a number 2. Right now, he may become that number 1 that could beat that coverage. Right now, I don't know that he has the arsenal to do it. And we've seen it's been a number of weeks in the last 6 weeks where he's really not put up big fantasy numbers. So again, he's getting targets, he's getting a floor, but unfortunately, he's not that player he was earlier in the year. Bucky Irving was back. Bucky Irving had a really nice game. The yards per carry weren't very good, 3.5-ish, 17 carries, 61. He got a touchdown. He had a second one called back. There was a holding call. Kind of saw it, kind of didn't. It looked like one that I don't know how much it impacted or not, but Irving could have had 2 touchdowns. Also caught 2 for 20. So again, 81 yards, touchdown, 2 catches. Definitely will take that in his return. He was inefficient, but very fantasy productive before the injury. So this kind of looks the same. The efficiency wasn't through the roof, but again, the fantasy production and the touches, a very real thing. Rashad White only had 2 catches and 3 targets. Sean Tucker, 2 carries, no yards. So this immediately is back to being Bucky Irving's backfield. We heard, now we'll check the snap share tomorrow, but we did hear about the point that Bucky Irving could have been limited today. Todd Bowles said he'd get his work, but he might be limited. I didn't see such limitations. Rashad White played a normal change of pace role as far as I could see. But again, the snap count will tell all. K. Dotton disappeared, 2 for 9, 2. Weren't really recommending him. Godwin, another week back in. Egbuka, they're going to be dominating the targets right now. Tez Johnson faded off 1 for 5, so not much there. Arizona side, big question everybody had. With Marvin Harrison back, what happens to Michael Wilson? And this is a tough one. Nobody really knew the answer because the last 2 games Harrison played before the appendectomy, he was 12 and 10 targets. And then Michael Wilson took over when the appendectomy happened for Harrison, and it was like 18 and 15 targets, something like that. And so they both get 7, split it down the middle. Harrison more productive, 6 for 69. Michael Wilson 3 for 36. If you started Michael Wilson, it was not a good thing, but I will say this, the fact they both had 7 targets, there's a real good chance as the indicator going forward, as long as Jacoby Brissett, which hopefully is for a long time. So we'll see how that happens there. But again, 7 targets each. And of course, Trey McBride, a little bit slow in the first half. I think he had 3 catches really early for minimal yardage. And then he went a whole long stretch in the first half where he only had 1 more ball thrown his way. Ends up for 882 and a late touchdown. So again, as always, gets it done for you on 9 targets. Bam Knight, again, I very rarely recommend him, but this is one of those weeks. Tampa, really good run defense. Somehow he goes 11 for 62. Don't really know how that happened, but it happened. And then he ended up catching 3 for 36 and a touchdown. This is a guy who's really not a receiver, where Michael Carter had 6 targets, 5 for 47. So the Tampa blitz is coming, which that makes sense. Because the game was close, it didn't become chase time at Michael Carter, so they were able to keep Knight on the field. So it all worked out. If you started Knight, great for you. I didn't recommend him. Michael Carter, again, always a PPR option when you think they're going to trail, and he got you a little bit there. But Bam Knight had the day. Good there. And then, so we're kind of good on that game. So we're going to go over more of this week's reactions after we take a very, very short break. All right, next we have instant reaction number 4. The Bills blow out the Steelers. And the final score on that one was, let me refresh this, and it was Bills 26, Steelers 7. Man, the game started out, it was fun in the beginning. Jalen Warren scores short. I'll go with the records. Let me go with records. Bills go to 8-4. They're still 2 games behind the Patriots for the top seed. They're tied for the 5th seed right now. I don't know how tiebreakers all shake out on that. And then the Steelers move to 7-5. They have a 1-game lead over the Ravens, a 2-game lead over the Bengals. Maybe it gets tight there. We'll have to see how that happens. So I will talk about the Steelers first, even though they lost, because it was bad. It was a bad watch. So Jalen Warren scores an early touchdown, and it looks good for the Steelers. It was either 7-3 or 7-0, but at some point it was 7-3 Steelers, and it looked like one of these games where they're going to have a little bit going their way. Well, things turned very quickly. So the Steelers had, maybe in the early second half, a pick 6. And so it cost them. And then once that happened, the storm gates just opened and the flood hit. So Aaron Rodgers gets hit by Joey Bosa at one point, and he gets hit hard, gets bloodied up on his nose. And then you could tell he hurt that wrist again. The wrist, he had a cast on his left wrist. It was terrible. And he was terrible before, 10-21, 117. Darnell Washington, 2 for 45, leading receiver. Sarah DK Metcalf, you got 3 for 32. You thought the running game would feast. Everybody thought they would crush the Bills on the ground. Didn't happen. Game script worked against them too, because they were down the whole second half. Couldn't run the ball. So Warren gets 10 for 35, Gainwell 5 for 20. That's it. They both catch a couple passes. So if you start, and there were people asking me to start both in the same lineup, I go diversify, because if it doesn't work out, you don't want both of these guys if that happens. And fortunately, that was the case if you did that. But otherwise, the Bills side, the Bills played very smart football. They knew they could run on Pittsburgh, even without their starting tackles. Both starting tackles were out. They ran the ball 51 times to only 23 passes. Now, some of that was they played with a lead, but they were able to gash them on the ground. 51 carries for 249 yards. James Cook goes for 144 on 32 carries. Cook also is their leading receiver with 3 for 33 because they didn't have to pass the ball. So great day for James Cook. Doesn't find the end zone. Who cares? He had a great fantasy day. The touchdown, of course, is Keon Coleman. He gets 2 for 9 and a touchdown. Suspended 2 games, and Keon Coleman scores a touchdown on nobody's roster, but it is what it is there. But they didn't have to pass. Allen only attempted 23 passes. Of course, Josh Allen finds a way to get done for fantasy. 38 yards and a touchdown on the ground, 1 touchdown pass. He always fight most weeks. 1 week he didn't know he had that one really bad game. But again, even in a game where they don't need him, he gets it done. But the Bills, this is a big win for them. I mean, not that we didn't think they could beat the Steelers. We kind of probably imagined they would. But the Steelers would have been alive here had they been able to play a little better on defense and play with a lead. They didn't. But the Bills at 8-4 now, it's very good for them. Very good opportunity to get them down the stretch run. We'll see. I don't know if they're going to be able to give the Bills. The Bills are going to have to lose. The Patriots have to lose a game somewhere to have a chance to make a run at that. We'll see what happens there, but that should be good. Hey, you dominated your fantasy football league all season long. Now it's time to show it off. Trophy Smack turns your league domination into hardware built to flex. From championship belts, trophies, rings, and chains, they got everything a true champion needs to make victories unforgettable. And don't forget about shaming that league loser. They've got items like high visibility loser vests, embarrassing singlets, yes, and humiliating license plate frames. Trophy Smack fuels the glory and punishment every league needs to keep the season unforgettable. Trash talk phase, but hardware lasts forever. You earned this moment. Claim it. Visit TrophySmack.com to lock in your hardware and take off 10% off with the code ROTOSMACK10. 10% off with TrophySmack.com, code ROTOSMACK10. You can thank us later. All right, instant reaction number 5. The Seahawks dominate the Vikings. They blew them out badly. The final score in this one, Seahawks 26, goose egg for the Vikings. The Seahawks at 9-3, they're now tied with the Rams atop the NFC West, tied with the Bears as well for the NFC number 1 seed. fun there. But the Bears are the number one seed on tiebreakers right now, crazy as that sounds. So this game, look, the Seahawks didn't have to do much. Their defense carried the day. We saw Ernest Jones, a pick six, and he got another interception later. They sacked Mac Brosmer 4 times. They picked him off 4 times. They forced and recovered a fumble from Aaron Jones. So 5 takeaways by the defense. They scored a touchdown. They had 4 sacks. And if you get points for the shutout, you were set. So like Big Smoke Barbecue 74 said, Seahawks saved me in 3 leagues, and there's no doubt they had themselves a day. And we had another viewer, Delagizi, saying Seahawks defense saving my weekend. They totally did just that. Now, here's the problem for fantasy. If you were playing fantasy, the defense did so much work, the offense didn't have to do a whole lot. So they run 32 times. Sam Darnold throws 26, but Sam Darnold, he got 4 sacks, many of those early. And it was clear the Vikings would have been able to handle him had their offense been able to show up to the party. They couldn't. So they were very careful with the passes that Darnold threw. The most targets went to A.J. Barner, 5. And then we had a tie with Cooper Kupp, Kenneth Walker, and Smith and Jigba with 4 each. But the game plan was don't let the Vikings get to Darnold. And it worked because their defense took care of business. And now Jackson Smith and Jigba, 2 for 23. Obviously, it's no knock on him. Obviously, it was game script only, and this isn't going to likely happen much again. There have been games where they blew people out, and he still got enough done. This is just one of those weeks, and hopefully it didn't cost somebody a big game for playoff seeding. You go right back to him next week, and all is fine. The running back room, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I'll just talk about Kenneth Walker getting more work. Well, I will say this. Charbonnet got closer work. And so there is something to go with that. So that said, Charbonnet gets 14 carries. Walker gets 13. The yardage, Walker nips him 56 of 52. But of course, Charbonnet scores the touchdown. Now, Kenneth Walker chips in 3 for 18 through the air. So Walker gets you about 10 PPR and Charbonnet gets you 11. So it's been that way all year. Walker had a big game or 2, and that was about it. But, you know, again, the work may have been more split had the game been closer and in favor of Walker, because I do think they might want to go his way a bit. But the way this game panned out, this is just the same typical week for them. And then finally, the Minnesota side. Well, Max Brosmer, 19 to 30. Well, it's a better completion percentage than J.J. McCarthy's throwing, but the result was no different. And here's the thing. Justin Jefferson, 6 targets, 2 catches, 4 yards. We thought it was bad. This is bad. This is rock bottom. This is rock bottom for Justin Jefferson. They lose Aaron Jones with a shoulder injury later in this game. Jordan Mason got some carries when the defense didn't carry. He carried 6 for 47. So he got a couple late runs when it was clear they weren't really worried about the run. Leading receiver, TJ Hockenson, 659. He was averaging about 20 yards maybe in the last month. So that came out of nowhere. Can't trust him. And then Jordan Addison got his 10 targets, 5 for 36. So, again, for him, that's a ceiling game in the last month, unfortunately. Great player, would be a wide receiver 1 in a lot of places. But, again, this offense is just going to be problematic the rest of the year. And if you have Justin Jefferson, I truly feel upset for you, because that is a fantastic player who should not have that going his way. Thanks to our sponsor, Chalkboard, where you simply choose more or less than your favorite player. It's stats and win up to 5,000 times your money. And thanks to everyone for listening. Come back next week for another edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast.